Welcome to our first week yoga pose breakdown. Today I chose downward dog or Adha Mukha Svanasana. If those of you out there know Sanskrit, if you know me, you know I don't use Sanskrit in my yoga classes, but that's the terminology for it in case that's how you know it by. So downward dog is a foundational pose. I like to group it in some of the main poses that really sort of drive and help our yoga practice. So one of the great things about downward dog is when we get in a position where our head is down and our bum is lifted, it has such a positive effect on the spine. So if you think about your head being like a weight, it helps to draw some compression out of the spine. But with that being said, it's not the most comfortable position, especially when you're first learning. So I'm going to go through how you prepare for downward dog, how you get into downward dog, and then some of the refinements that we can do when we're in the pose. I want you to think first and foremost about having your tailbone be the highest point of this sort of pike position that we get our bodies in. And once I get to puppy pose, which is one of the ways we're going to sort of build into our downward dog today, if that feels strengthening enough, then just stay there. You can still listen to the sound of my voice and still listen to the cues that I'm going to give you with the hands and with the shoulders and whatnot. But just stay there if you need to, okay? So let's get started. We are going to come to a kneeling position or table. And one great way to sort of warm up just real quickly here for our downward dog is to just take a couple of cat-cows. So we're going to inhale, come into a cow posture, and then exhale, round your spine, cat pose. Let's just do this twice. Good, and then come back to this table pose. We're going to stay here for a second. I want you to find a positive press. So all the way into the shoulder blades. It's like you're at the top of a push-up. Okay, and then just let your chest kind of sag, keep your arms straight, and feel your shoulder blades kind of relax. Again, press away, and then relax your chest down. Press away. So if you're less familiar with downward dog, this is going to be feel very strength focused, much more so than maybe you realize when you look at people doing the position. So just gentle little warm up like this will help us when I'm asking to cue a little movement in the shoulder blades. Good job. Okay, so just relaxing from there. So I'm going to bring us into puppy pose to start with, and puppy is something that I will use throughout a class on its own, but it's also a really good alternative if ever you're in a class and they prompt downward dog. Puppy pose is a good one to come into instead. So we're going to start from this same table position, okay, and then we're just going to let our elbows kind of take place of where the wrists are at. So coming down onto the forearms. And then just kind of relax your body here for a second. Keep your gaze down. You'll feel how your pelvis wants to tilt. So tailbone wants to lift towards the ceiling and your heart wants to drop. If you were to just relax your head from here, you would essentially be bringing your spine into that same nice lengthening position that downward dog provides. If we want to come into our full puppy pose, stay here with the arms and just start to walk your knees back a little. Okay, spread your hands nice and wide. Walk your knees back and then stack your hips over top. Let your forehead relax down. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. So this is puppy. Like I say, certainly a posture you can stay in that has that same kind of foundational points as downward dog. Make sure your hands are spread nice and wide. You can even lift your fingers. Just wiggle them on the mat. Make sure all 10 fingers have contact. then just start to pull your shoulders back forward over top of the elbows and walk your knees in. So we're gonna curl our toes under. We're gonna come up to downward dog. Take a little peek down at your hands and just ever so slightly rotate the index fingers in towards each other. Okay, just a little bit. When you're ready, lift your hips up. Coming into our downward dog. So my advice, or one of pieces of advice, for those of you who find downward dog to be really challenging is to keep your mind busy. So hamstrings are inevitably tight, glutes are inevitably tight. You may be really thinking about the challenge that this is for your arms and your upper body. So pedal your feet. Okay, or maybe bend your knees really generously and let your belly press back towards your thighs. Okay, remember to leave your head out of the equation. So the most important aspect here is to allow some of this compression to work its way from tailbone up through the crown of your head. Hasta Bandha, or hand to earth. It's one of the bandhas of yoga. Again, not something that I refer to by its terminology a lot, but essentially it's really connecting both hands into your mat. So again, lift your fingers if you need to, maybe lift one hand at a time. All 10 fingers and both pads of the hands are doing a lot of work. One of the things that happens most often is that weight gets dumped into the pinky fingers. Be mindful of that. Don't worry if your heels never touch the ground. That's okay. Think about lifting the tailbone like your pelvis is in a sling and allowing that spine to draw forward. See if you're able to create space from the ears to the shoulders, so engage the scapula. Try to slide your shoulder blades down your back just a tiny bit. Take one more breath. Great job. Good, and then the descent out of this is a slow, controlled one, okay? We're training all the stabilizing muscles. Usually either coming to the knees or stepping forward, but just slowly bend the knees. We're gonna keep pushing away from the floor, so that same engagement in the arms. And then just let yourself come down onto your mat. Just shake your wrists out. Okay guys, so that's just a little breakdown of downward dog. Again, just to sort of take it back through some of the main points. Get your tailbone high, allow your heart, your head, your shoulders, your chest to drop forward. So that might mean being in that more modified version where you stay on your knees, like from table, or maybe inching the knees back and coming into puppy pose. Okay, that's foundational point number one. And then if you're ready to progress into downward dog, have some movement, let your body move. You can even move the whole time if you want to. Just keep pedaling your feet, keep bending your knees, maybe lifting and lowering your heels, wiggling your fingers or resetting your hands until you get really comfortable with the pose. And then at some point in time, before you know it, you're going to be just feeling so comfortable in downward dog, and you're going to be able to hold it with stillness and take some nice deep breaths.